Yeah, basically, I was like telling them, what if you spent like 6, 7 minutes with God in the morning, 6, 7 times a week? Like you'd probably be 6 or 7 times closer to God.
Oh my
So
God.
that brings us right into
Oh my
our
goodness.
topic for today of quiet time.
Yeah, let's
Let's
go.
go.
Guys, this is so fun. So welcome back to the Real College Life podcast. I'm Gerrit. I'm an intern here at the Point team. Super pumped for our episode today, but let's do some intros. Lex, you want to kick us off?
Sure. My name is Lex. I am on staff here. This is my first year in Central Wisconsin, which is super fun. Yeah, my quiet time. Right now, I try and spend time with the Lord in the morning, and then at night, I'm just the most active at night, so I try to like do Bible reading in the morning. Probably the girlies can like relate to this, but I do my makeup in the morning. And so it's like a solid 30 minutes of just like either listening to a podcast or praying or things like that to kind of just get me ready like for my day.
That's awesome. I forgot to say, we're going to say what we do for our quiet time in the morning. So that's what Lex was just sharing. But each of us, going to say who we are, what we do for quiet time. So
Sweet. I can go next. I'm Libby Jordan. I'm a senior at Point studying health science and wellness and also getting certified in health coaching. And my quiet time, I mean, it looks a little different day to day, but I'm also really active at night. It just kind of helps me wind down. So I have like a mood light in my room. So I turn that on. I make sure that my teeth are brushed, my face is all ready so I don't have to go back out. And then grab my Bible, my highlighter, pen, journal, and I just read through my Bible and then pray in my journal, write everything down. It's a cool opportunity for me to just like focus on what I'm praying about.
awesome.
Yeah, my name's Jaxon. I'm a student here at Point, and I'm also in the morning. I used to be at night, but I found that it's easy to kind of just do it and forget what I read. So I like doing it in the morning because it helps give me something that I can take for my day and set me off on the right foot. And I'm currently going through Hebrews, and I usually like to read a chapter a day, and then I usually sit in prayer or listen to some worship music and just spend some time being quiet and just kind of like meditating on it, what I read. So yeah.
That's awesome. Like I said, my name's Gerrit, first year intern here. I did study health science and wellness too, so shout out for that.
Let's go.
My quiet time, I also am like, I think better at night than I do like first thing in the morning. So I have evolved to a little bit of a morning quiet time. I like to paraphrase the Bible first thing in the day. So I would pick like a paragraph. I'm going through First Timothy right now. So I pick like a paragraph and I just write it in my own words. And that's fun. And then at night, I always like recap and highlight things or look things up that I was confused on. Then I journal each night just to check in, see where I'm at like mentally, and then also be able to kind of work out some thoughts that are, they stew in your head, and then once you put them on paper, they become a little more tangible and real, I think. So, for those listening, maybe we should define quiet time. Since we keep saying that. So what does that mean?
Yeah. I would say quiet time is spending one-on-one time with God. I think it's also in isolation where it's not distractive or there's other things going on. It can get really easy to like have quiet time in like messy spaces or with other people, but it's like, how do I have interrupted time one-on-one with God for like a certain extended period of time?
I'd say kind of with that, it's like with being time with God, it's a perfect opportunity to recharge your batteries, whether that is in the morning or at night. It's a time that you can have with yourself, alone with God, and just that one-on-one, just taking some time, being alone, recharging your batteries, reflecting on what is to come with your day or what your day looked like, whether you're in the morning or at night, and just going with that and going with a full battery afterwards.
Yeah, for me, it's that whole practice intentionality. When I'm intentional with him, I see that he's intentional with me. And then I can also pour that into other relationships in my life, which is really interesting because when I'm lacking being intentional with God, typically my other relationships in my life are also lacking in me being intentional with them.
For sure, that's good. I know, like when I was first getting into crew, I kept hearing this word "quiet time," and I like got flashbacks to kindergarten and preschool. So I'm like we definitely need to like define this for everybody. But yeah, spending time in the morning with God. What might like let's just say average quiet time? Like, what are some activities you might be doing? What might that look like? I know we've kind of shared what we do, but
I mean, like you said, Garrett, 6 or 7 minutes, right?
could
No.
be or more.
I think any time is good, but I say for me, with what I do, it's probably anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. Just because I'm only doing a chapter in the Bible, but sometimes what I used to do at night, I'd like to journal as well,
Hmm.
and that would probably push it closer to 30 minutes. I think as long as you are finding some time to be one-on-one with God, whatever that looks like, um, that's important.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's a specific amount of time. Like if you're not spending more than 5 minutes, then it's not real quiet time. I don't think that's the
Yeah.
case.
No, I agree.
I think it also depends on the season and what you need. Like last week, I was going through a bunch of different spiritual warfare, and so I needed a lot more quiet time
Mm.
just to invite him in, whether that looked like stopping what I'm doing or just walking somewhere and getting something out where I can write, just give it all to him, or just spending a lot more time in the Bible, or even bringing in community and people that I trust to help pour into me and pour the truth back in. I think that's something that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I've realized a lot of times in my quiet time that I talk a lot to God and spend a lot of time with God, but then I don't like spend time like either meditating or like listening back to God.
Mm.
And that's something that I've just kind of learned in my quiet time of like, oh, I'm doing a lot of the talking. That I just like need also just time to like either reflect on like his word of him like talking to us, or like just leaving time to just kind of pray to the Holy Spirit if there's anything like to reveal, whether that's like in repentance too of things. And that was something I realized. I was like, man, I don't do that enough.
I actually, you mentioned doing a lot of the talking. When I was going through something hard about this time last year, actually, I reached out to my old small group leader where I used to live. And one thing he asked was how my prayer life was. And I said, it's better than ever because I'm seeking God for help. And he said, well, is it a monologue or a dialogue? I was like,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, that hits deep. It's definitely monologue because I was doing all the talking and wasn't doing any listening. I think the listening part, just spending time quiet, listening for God and what he has to say, it's just as important as talking to him.
For sure. Okay. So to summarize, if we have a quiet time, we're probably reading the Bible, praying both ways, right?
Right.
Talking and listening. Sounds like other things we could do are journaling, meditation, breathing, makeup.
That's actually so real.
Optional. I think it is, not officially quiet time, but it is cool to like find creative ways to pray to God and to commune with God. I know like when I worked at BioLife, like a plasma company, every time I would like drop off a plasma bag, I was like, oh, I'd take that time to pray for the donor, pray for the person who's
Good.
going to receive the
Good.
treatment. Just like find little routines in your day like that remind you, little nuggets that remind you to talk to God. But yeah, why is this even important? Why are we talking about this today? Yeah, any thoughts?
It just reminds me of the verse where it says, ask and it will be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened. And I felt like God's kind of put this verse on my heart for the past month. And he's like, a lot of people seek me, but then after they stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they don't get their answer about something, they just stop. And through that quiet is almost another test of our faith. Are we going to keep seeking him when we're not hearing the answer? Are we going to keep looking for ways that he's speaking to us? And an analogy that I always like to use is like in high school or even college when you're taking an exam or a test, the teacher isn't speaking, but you can go up and ask questions. You're just not going to get a direct answer. And so, in moments where we feel like we aren't hearing God, maybe He's walking us through a test of our faith. Because blessed is he who believes without seeing. And I think that's something that the Lord's really taught me through quiet time, of just keep seeking me, seeking my voice, my answer, and I'm going to speak to you in different ways, and it's not always going to be the same.
Wow, that's so good.
Yeah. What comes to mind for me is we have a relational God. And when you think of a relationship, one-on-one time is so important. I mean, we go to church, and a lot of other people are there, and community is awesome. Having community with Christ, we're called to have that. But having that one-on-one time, that's where you grow the most. If you think of like real world, like in person, if you're building a friendship, the most time that you will see growth, or the most growth, is when you're one-on-one with that person, truly getting to know them. And so spending that one-on-one time with God, I mean, obviously he already fully knows us, but beginning to understand who he is more in that one-on-one time, I think that's where you see the most growth.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, like this is a relationship with God. And so when you think of a relationship, like you spend one-on-one time with someone, you listen and you also like talk, like you go on dates. And if we're not like spending our time with God, like what is our relationship going to even look like? And I think even in scripture, the amount of times that Jesus like went alone to like the Father to pray, like even, before like, while he was being betrayed by Judas, he like went alone in solitude in prayer. He like told the disciples to go and pray to the Father. And I don't know, like, are we better than Jesus? No, like Jesus is our example. Like we should be following in his footsteps. And the fact that like even Jesus like spent time alone, like with God, also it's like, oh, well, we need that even more, and we should be doing that.
Yeah, that's so good. I love the emphasis on the relationship, and how we need to. How would you expect to hear from somebody if you never met up with them and talked to them? So good. Speaking of hearing, or God moving, like how have you seen God move through your quiet time?
I can touch on last week again when I was going through that spiritual warfare. I was just at work and my mind was just racing about different things that were going on in my life, personal, and then I was carrying that into different relationships as well, and it was starting to affect everything. And I wasn't necessarily being fully communicative with those people, and so I felt almost guilty because I wasn't being like, this is what I need in this moment because I'm feeling this way about everything else in my life. And so I just spent 40 minutes in prayer. And by the end of it, I felt so much peace. But then something happened and it triggered, and all that emotion came back. And it can be really hard because I think that's a real thing that happens is you can leave quiet time feeling so much peace or so good about something, but then something else happens and it all just comes back. And I think quiet time and surrendering everything to Jesus isn't a one-time thing. It's a daily thing. Sometimes it's minutely. Sometimes it's every second. And I think that's that whole part of like taking up your cross to follow him.
For sure.
That's good. I'd say with my quiet time, that's definitely where I hear the most from God. Whether that's in the Word, or there's one time in particular which is pretty cool. About this time last year actually, I was going through some hardships in my life, unsure where God was bringing me through those, and I was spending more time than usual with God in quiet time, and seeing growth in that, and just asking him where am I going? What's your plan for me? And I was just a little anxious about it. And I found myself sitting there for a while just doing nothing but closing my eyes and listening to some worship music. And it was about, I don't even remember what song was ending, but there was a song ending, and as it was changing songs, I felt the word title in bold come to my mind, and I don't know how else to explain it. Like it like popped up as like read the title, and so I looked at my phone and it just said Waymaker, and I was like, whoa. I was like, that can't, there's no such thing as coincidences. And so just that was very encouraging for me of just saying, okay, God, I trust you. I trust with where you're going to bring me. And I trust your timing. And so just little things like that. Well, I wouldn't call them little things. I'd say that's huge. God being able to communicate and help us feel encouraged through hardships, whether that's through the word or in other ways. I know some people see like visions and stuff. I personally don't, but there's many different ways that God can communicate to us and show us things and tell us things. And I got to experience a way that was different than normal. And so I really remember it well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember just like I feel like after doing this for so long, I'm just like, man, I really learned how to like depend on God and depend on the Holy Spirit through that. And through my walk with God, I've had to like spend a lot of time in prayer, praying for people and praying to walk and overcome things throughout my spiritual journey. And I'm like, man, like looking back, I was like, those times that I spent in prayer were so important because the things I'm walking through now feel like less big. Like I feel more peace and more calm when hitting struggles and things because I'm like, wow, like I've really depended on the Spirit before. I've seen God show up in prayer, and now he's like going to continue to walk through me and get me out of like what I'm going through now. And I may not see it for like a year or 2 years, but like the overall, I'm like, wow, it's been so long. And like those times I've prayed for someone to like finally become a Christian, like 6 years later, I get to see like the fruit of that, which is just wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember my freshman year my sophomore year. Before I'd like given my life to Christ, I was kind of involved with crew, had been reading my Bible on a semi-regular basis, and I had a job that like required a lot of me. I worked a lot of hours. I was managing, and I was anxious. Like I would wake up in the morning and I would have a schedule for my whole day, and I had to like stick to that schedule. I couldn't like go on my phone, couldn't impromptu go hang out with friends because like that would mess me up for the rest of the week. And I was, yeah, just so anxious and like working through what I have to do the next day, like the night before in bed. And I remember I was reading Matthew 6 that night, and the verse, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." And I think that was the first time that I ever like read something, and I was like, wow, like I feel like Jesus said this thing, like for me. And I know many other people have read that verse and felt the same way. But I think God just shows up sometimes very uniquely in our quiet time and hits us exactly where we need. To build off what Lex said too, I think God also moves very slowly through our quiet times, like over the years. And as I've seen myself pray for God to change my heart on certain things, like day after day after day, and not really feeling it each day, but then having friends come up to me after a while, "Hey, you've really grown in this." Like, wow, that's so cool to see God like to use that quiet time and for him to work, even though we don't see it, and it's not one of those like Matthew 6:33 every single like every I feel like Jesus wrote this for me. It's not like that every single day, but to see him work through just faithfulness and boring prayers and distracted prayers is awesome. So I shared like a story of how I felt like God met me really intimately, but maybe for somebody who is starting out quiet time or has never done it before, like what should they expect to get from quiet times?
I think kind of going off of how you said that verse spoke to you, and like you said, it's not going to happen every quiet time. I think it's important to remember that God's going to give you what you need, and maybe what you need probably isn't what you think you need.
For sure.
And sometimes you won't hear maybe anything or take anything significant away from your quiet time. But if you think about it like a friendship relationship, spending that one-on-one time, sometimes you're just sitting there with each other, and that company's more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's how it is spending time with Christ as well in our quiet time. It's good to just spend the time one-on-one. Sometimes you take something cool away from it. Sometimes you don't, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd say expect it to be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell when there's just a battle between my flesh and my spirit. And that's where it's sometimes difficult to have quiet time at night because you can get really, really tired and you're like, no, I'll just do it tomorrow.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
I get stuck down that cycle. It happened last week.
Mm-hmm.
And God's like, Libby, I want you to talk to me. And I'm like, but I'm so tired. And he's like, but if you talk to me, I can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And just like realizing in that moment, okay, I have to put my flesh away, which is needing more sleep, and rely on God to give me the rest I need through him. And it was really cool because like I have been wanting to go and just finish the Old Testament, and I've been going through 2 Samuel right now. And so I opened it and I was just struggling. I could tell that I was reading and nothing would retain because I'd read it and I'm like, wait, what did I just read? And I'd read it again. And I'm like, okay, this is stupid. So then God's like, go to something that you've read before because I can still speak to you in that. So then I flipped to First Thessalonians 4 and 5. And I was like, wow, God, that's cool. Because not only did he remind me of something that I needed reminder of, but I also got to take that into different conversations that I had throughout the week of what people needed pouring into and just reminders of how I can keep accountable and how I can help other people stay accountable through that too, which I just think is really cool because we don't always have to read something new for God to speak to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was just actually talking to someone earlier today about like kind of that of like, why do we put like all our other appointments more important than our appointment with God? Like
Wow.
we like being like being able to have our appointment with God is so important, but it's so easy just to like constantly push it on the back burner of like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow and tomorrow. And then I get to like Bible studies and I'm like, wow, I haven't opened up my Bible in a whole week. This is the first time I've actually opened it up because I like am doing it in community. And I think that's just something that they grow in into like when you start your quiet time with God, it could literally just be 5 minutes. Like it doesn't have to be like this whole 2-hour long in prayer and like no, start with 5 minutes. Like start off simple and work your way up. It's like working your spiritual muscles. Like the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to do it longer and you're going to be able to have more joy in like actually spending time with God and the longer you do that for. And so I mean, I struggle with that sometimes and I like realize that like, wow, I haven't opened my Bible in like a hot minute. And I'm like, okay, I need to go back. And so, yes. And I think it takes sacrifice. I think we need to be willing to like sacrifice certain things in order to spend time with God. If it's like, well, I can't go to dinner with friends because I haven't had time with God today. It's like, what am I putting more in importance? Like my friends are God. And so sometimes it might take a little sacrifice in places that we just don't want to.
Yeah, and that rubs hard against like who we are, who we want to be. But yeah, seeing this as like time with God, like, whoa, that's super important. Like we need to make sure that we have access to God first of all, which is like we've been assuming this whole podcast, which is just a crazy idea that like we can talk to God through prayer and we can read his word in the Bible. And then the fact that sometimes we're like, well, I'll just do that tomorrow. Oh, that is not a good thought.
Knife to the chest.
Yeah. But yeah, back to like expecting and just to kind of capitalize on that point. I think we should expect it to be boring some days. Yeah, like you guys were saying of like, you're going to pray things and you're not going to feel it. You're not going to feel like what you're reading in 2 Samuel or whatever, is like hitting you today. But you should kind of come into quiet time realizing that like that might be what it's like, and if God does really show up and really have a verse that hits you hard, or gives you a realization that just hits like exactly where you need, like that's amazing. And you want to expect that God will do that going into your quiet time as well.
Mhm.
Like I guess you don't want to come in being like, oh, this is going to be boring. But you want to come in like understanding that there's a very real possibility, and I'm completely okay with it being boring. But I also fully like would not be surprised if God like showed up. Not that he doesn't show up in our boringness, but you know what I mean. Like if God really like hits me exactly where I feel like I need, in that day. Yeah.
I would agree. And I think it's that balance too. Because there's dry seasons where you are not hearing from God. And I went through one over the summer, and it's just like, Lord, I need you to be intentional with me because I'm struggling to hear you, and open my eyes and my ears and my heart to see you and hear you in the mundane things that I do in my day to day. And I think when we seek him that way, he seeks us twice as hard.
Right.
And that's what's crazy. It's like he loves us so much. We just have to keep seeking him.
Yeah, Gerrit. Excuse me. I kind of like how you mentioned that we've just been assuming that we have that connection and able to spend time with God. And I think that's so easy to take for granted.
For sure.
And I personally like to start off my quiet time with prayer before I open my Bible, and just saying thank you, and just thanking him for all that he's given me, and also thanking him for the opportunity that we have to freely engage with him. We live in a country where we have that opportunity. Like we aren't persecuted in America. We can sit here, talk about quiet time on this podcast, and we don't have to worry about who's outside.
Right.
And same thing, like we can sit in a public setting and pray for a meal and not have to worry about who's watching. And I think that's special. I think it's a blessing, and it's something we definitely can easily take for granted. So I think it's important to keep that in mind too.
For sure. All right, so for our listeners who are like sold, I want this quiet time thing you're talking about. What are some tips that we can give them for like how to start?
Like how you said, Lex, start little. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about like lifting. If you really have the time, you can jump straight in, spend 2 hours in quiet time. If you can do that and be fully engaged for 2 hours, your first quiet time, props to you, because I definitely couldn't. But it's okay to start little. God likes little things. He wants your time, and every second you spend with him is precious to him. And so start little and build up, and see where he takes you with that, but be intentional with it.
Yeah. I also think everyone needs different things. Like, I love my prayer journal, and writing helps me focus on what I'm praying for, because I find when I pray in my mind, I get distracted really easily. And plus, it's a way that I can look back and see what God's been doing in my life, whether answered prayers or even unanswered prayers that he answered in a way that I didn't want it to be answered. But I'm so grateful that it got answered that way. I know one of my friends does not like prayer journals because it takes so much time. And just understanding, like, try something, and if it doesn't work, then ask around. Like, what do you do? What do you do? How does that work? Is there different tweaks that I can take on that?
Right.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's helpful to create a schedule. Like if you're that type of person that's like, I need a dedicated time every day to like do that, to like work up, great. If you're a person that's like, oh, well, it just fits when I can, great. But make sure by the end of the day, you're reflecting on like, did I actually spend time with the Lord today? And do it out of joy. Like during the summer, I love hammocking and like sitting with my Bible and like reading. And that's one of my favorite quiet times. Or like during the winter, I put my little twinkle lights in my room and have my coffee. And I'm like, oh, this is the best. And so it's supposed to be enjoyable. And so whatever that looks like for you, or like some people just enjoy doing the quiet time over like lunch. And they're like, okay, this is my lunch hour to like do quiet time. So wherever that like fits in and is like the best for you. I remember when I was like a senior, there was like a strip of going to classes that was about 15 minutes, and I would literally just carry my Bible with me, and I would carry it to class, and I would have 15 minutes like with the Lord, like my AirPods in, no one like bothering me, like spending half time praying, half the time reading. And I love that because I was like, okay, every day I'm going to class at this time, and this is like the strip that I'm gonna like spend time with the Lord. So like whatever works for you, like try it out, try different things until like it's actually more natural for you to do it.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's just like 15 minutes too. It's not like it has to be an hour long.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I like that. That's good.
for sure. I know when I started, I just read a chapter a day. And now when I think about reading a chapter a day, I'm like, that sounds exhausting. I read I read a paragraph a day, but that's because I like, I
Yeah.
spend time and I rewrite it and all that stuff. But I would really recommend that to start with a chapter a day and just kind of read through it. Get what you can. I wouldn't be too concerned about like knowing every single thing in there, just because the book is 2,000 years old at its newest. And so if you don't understand some of it, it's okay. A really good resource that I like to recommend to people is Bible Reference, BibleReference.com, or there's also a Bible Ref app. And in there, I don't think they've completed the whole Bible, but there's verse by verse like commentary on each Bible verse. So if you're starting out new, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do that just because you might get like way over your head on all these interpretations. And there's just a lot of info in those kind of commentaries and resources. I would recommend just read it and get what you can and see, what God might reveal to you. But also prayer is super important. So there's 4 aspects of prayer that when I first started were really helpful for me. Number 1 is rejoice. So you like say things that you're grateful for the day, being able to talk about your faith and not be persecuted. The fact that you can breathe today, like that's a good thing. Or if you had a nice interaction with a friend, like things you're grateful for. Repent, which is, telling God, I sinned today. I messed up, and there's ways that, you called me to be better, and I wasn't. And so that's important to come to God with that. And then request is kind of the third one of asking God for things. And this is the one we like to do the most, honestly. Like, God, could you please just do this? And I think God is honored by that, but God also doesn't want to be a vending machine for us, for our problems. And then the final part is yield, which helps with our requests. And yield is just saying, God, you know what? This is what I want, but I want what you want more than what I want. Like Jesus said in the Lord's Prayer, like, your will be done, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Or like he said in the Garden of Gethsemane, like, not what I will, but what your will be done. So just completely submitting to, what God might have. And I want to jump back real quick to it. One of you were saying, I forget who, but about like how it might get boring. You were saying about your prayer journal, like there's different things for different people. And as you're trying to build a behavior, like understand that you might get to a point where what you're doing is not exciting for you. And like, that's okay. I got to a point where reading a chapter a day was no longer exciting for me. And so like I had to switch up my habits. I had to ask, people what they do. And it's definitely a growing process. Like I didn't get to where I am today, in a week. I continually found ways to make myself excited about reading scripture, but also not like exhaust myself every single day where I was like at a pace that I couldn't keep up. That's really important too. I think I got really motivated and I was like, I'm going to read 5 chapters a day so I can finish the Bible, and it's like, that just wasn't sustainable for me. And so finding that balance of like what's exciting for you to do in a day, like, so it's not boring, but then what's, finding your limit as well of like what's too much for you to do where you're overwhelmed and exhausted by your quiet time. I think you got to find that sweet spot. So
Yeah, I feel like I've talked to people who like, and this has happened to me where I'm like, it's January 1st and I'm going to read the Bible in a year. And I start my plan and you miss like 2 days, right? And you're like, oh, it's not bad. The next day I'll like make it up. But then I realize I'm only reading the Bible to like do a checklist and I'm
Right.
not actually doing it to like spend time with God.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, like I think there's a difference between like doing it legalistically and having discipline. And I think like having discipline is like actually doing it, but like having joy in what you're doing. But legalism is just getting it done to get it done, but not
Right.
actually taking anything away. And so with your quiet time, you find out like, wow, I would love to do this plan, but then it's like all you're doing it is to like do a checklist. Well, why are you doing your quiet time? Like then you definitely need to like change something up. And it's okay to not be like on your plan, because then I think it discourages people of like, I've started it and I get to February and I'm 2 weeks behind on my plan, so I stop altogether. And I'm like,
Right.
no, like need to like do something else instead of like completely stopping it.
And I think that's a real thing too, and that's a hard truth that I had to walk through. Is January 1st, I'd see all these people, I'm gonna do this plan, and it's like, well, I should do it then too.
Right.
And it's like, no, Libby, because you're gonna do it with the wrong intention. And I had to realize, like, sometimes I can only read a verse, but if I'm chewing on that verse and not just reading a chapter to read the chapter and check it off, it's so much better to read that one verse and actually retain it and chew on it than to read a whole chapter and not even use it.
Right.
Yeah, Lex, I like with what you were saying. I think that joy also comes with the more you do it. And the more you do it, the more you find what you like to do.
Yeah.
So, like you guys were saying, experiment.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't hurt to have a quiet time where you're like, well, that didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing because you're learning through that. And the more time you spend with someone, the more time you enjoy spending with them.
Right.
And so I think it just you will get more joyful quiet time the more you do it.
Right. And I like that too. Like it's personal, you know, like what works for Libby is not going to work for me. What works for Lex is not going to work for me. Or it might, but you know, it's your own personal relationship. Everybody's marriage is different. Everybody's dating, you know, and so you got to find things that you like to do with God, you know, like in any relationship.
And I think that's cool too, because like we'll go out to dinner with friends or you'll go on dates and stuff. And I've started realizing, like, take God on a date. Go on a date with God.
Date night with Jesus. Come on.
Let's go.
Actually, I've done that a couple of times and it's so much fun. It's just like, okay, Lord, like, let's go. Let's chill somewhere. Let's do something.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Sweet. Well, I'm so thankful to have you guys on the podcast today. It's been a great episode. Hopeful for the listeners. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And that's on period.